The metallic clang of armor against the stone floor echoed in the empty chamber. I knelt before her, rag in hand, scrubbing each dent, each streak of dust, each stubborn speck of dried blood that clung stubbornly to her battle-worn plates. It wasn't a task I enjoyed, yet it had become routine, one I performed with meticulous care. For most of the warriors in the barracks, this would have been a humbling chore, a menial duty beneath them. But for her, Commander Lasara, I treated it differently. The first time I had been assigned to clean her armor, I had approached it with the same detached efficiency I applied to all other soldiers. The prince's orders were clear: maintain equipment, maintain readiness, maintain respect for rank. But as I began the work, my hands hesitated over the ornate pauldrons etched with a sigil of the Starwood Legion. I noticed the subtle engravings, the tiny scratches that told stories of every skirmish she had survived. There was pride in this armor, pride and defiance, and somehow I felt compelled to honor it in a way I did not for the others. Now, months later, the habit had solidified into a ritual. I cleaned every curve, polished every joint, and buffed her cuirass until it gleamed like the surface of the morning sun. The other soldiers called me odd, whispering about favoritism, but I ignored them. The truth was, I couldn't explain it to anyone, not even myself. There was something about Lasara that demanded care, something beyond fear or respect, something human. Today, however, something felt different. Lasara had returned from the northern frontier, and her armor bore fresh scars, long, jagged streaks that cut across the breastplate and gauntlets. She moved with her usual confident grace, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. I knelt as usual, spreading a thick layer of silver polish over her pauldrons, running my rag along the embossed runes. "Why do you treat me differently?" Her voice, calm but probing, broke the silence. I froze. The question was unexpected. All this time, I had acted without thought, without expectation of notice. I had cleaned her armor differently because I wanted to, because it felt right, but I had never considered that she might notice. I don't know, I stammered. I treat your armor like it deserves it." She raised an eyebrow, not in mockery, but in curiosity. "Every other soldier, you clean them quickly, without care. Why me?" I hesitated. How could I explain it? That the way I touched her armor, how I polished and cared for it, was tied to the way I saw her, not as a commander, not as a legend of the Starwood Legion, but as a person? That my respect for her deeds, her resilience, demanded a reverence most did not understand? Words failed me. Instead, I bent closer, buffing a stubborn streak, letting the silence speak for me. Her eyes softened, though, and she sat down on the bench opposite me, removing her helmet. Her auburn hair fell in tangled waves, and the faint lines around her eyes betrayed months of battle and sleepless nights. "You do this because you see me," she said quietly. "Not the commander, not the armor. You see me." My hands stilled, hovering over the breastplate. I nodded, unable to speak. The vulnerability in her voice, so rare for someone who commanded legions, struck a chord I hadn't anticipated. Lasara leaned back, watching as I resumed my work. I've fought beside many who respected me for my rank, my skill, but few ever looked past that. You do. That is rare." Her words lingered in the air, heavier than any metal. For a moment, I realized that this armor, with all its dents and scratches, was not merely a vessel of war. It was a story of survival, of leadership, of sacrifice. And in cleaning it, I was not just preserving metal. I was honoring those stories, acknowledging the woman who had borne them. Hours passed unnoticed. The chamber grew dim, lit only by the pale glow of crystal sconces along the walls. Sweat dampened my brow as I carefully wiped away the final streak of polish. I stepped back, examining the armor. It gleamed now, almost impossibly bright, every curve and indentation highlighted. I had restored it, not just physically, but in spirit. Lasara studied it silently, then finally spoke. You see me the way few ever do. I don't know if I can repay that. You don't need to, I said simply. I don't do it for reward. I do it because it matters. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. She stood, her figure imposing even in the quiet chamber. Perhaps, she said, this is why I never forget those who serve me with honor, even in ways that seem small. You remind me that care and respect are not given, they are earned. And then she did something unexpected. She extended her hand, offering me a gauntlet from her armor. Wear this, she said. For today, you are as much a part of my victories as I am of my armor. You will carry my battles, even if only symbolically. I stared at the gauntlet, stunned. Accepting it felt like stepping across a line I had never dared to approach. Yet, as my fingers slid into the worn metal, I felt a surge of connection, an acknowledgement that the bond between us had shifted, grown beyond duty, beyond hierarchy. From that day, the chamber became more than a place to maintain armor. It became a sanctuary, a place where stories of battle and courage could be preserved in quiet ritual. Lasara returned often, sitting silently while I cleaned, sometimes speaking, sometimes just watching. Each session deepened our understanding, our unspoken respect. Months later, the northern frontier erupted into chaos. A rogue fleet from the Andera cluster invaded, burning villages, tearing through defenses. Lasara led the defense, of course, but I accompanied her, not as a mere caretaker, but as a soldier who had earned the right to witness, to protect, and to fight alongside her. The battles were fierce. The roar of plasma cannons, the hum of energy shields, the clash of steel against steel, it was unlike anything the stories had captured. And through it all, Lasara fought with unyielding resolve, her armor gleaming even under fire, every dent and scratch a testament to her skill and tenacity. When the battle ended, we returned to the barracks, weary and battered. I knelt once again to clean her armor, now scarred by the chaos of war. Lasara watched me, her gaze steady and unwavering. You still treat it differently, she said, a hint of amusement in her tone. I will, I replied. Always. She nodded, a rare softness in her expression. And I will remember it. Always. In that moment, I realized that care and attention, small as they seemed, could bridge worlds. Between commander and soldier, between legend and human, there existed a space defined not by rank or power, but by recognition, by acknowledgement, by respect. And sometimes, that space was more powerful than any battlefield. The armor gleamed under my hands, reflecting the dim light of the chamber, but more importantly, it reflected the bond we had forged, one built not on commands or loyalty alone, but on understanding, care, and recognition. And as Lasara placed her hand briefly on my shoulder, I knew that in honoring her armor, I had honored her, and in honoring her, I had found a place in her story as well. The question she had asked that day, why I treated her differently, no longer demanded an answer. The truth was evident in every polished plate, every careful stroke, every silent hour we had shared. Some things were better understood through actions than words. And as we stood together, the chamber quiet except for the faint hum of the energy forge in the corner, I knew that the act of cleaning armor had become something far greater than a task. It had become a testament to human connection, to respect, and to the subtle but undeniable power of seeing someone for who they truly are. It was then I understood. Heroes were not only made on the battlefield. They were made in the moments when someone dared to notice, to care, and to honor them quietly, without expectation, without reward. And I had done exactly that.